All right, so in this video, I'm gonna cover the basics of Clasp. So the reason you might need it, if you do, is when you want to develop AppScript's application on your computer instead of using this beautiful interface from Google. So very often you may have seen me writing new scripts when I go under Tools, Script Editor, for example, under Sheets. You could create this under Docs. You can actually create a separate script that is not attached to anything. But as an example, if I go to this brand new file, Tools, Script Editor, that opens the script editor. I'm going to dismiss this. And then you can just give this project some sort of name, right? And here's where you do all the magic. So you go and create a new function, call it say hello or something, and then maybe we want it to log this, something meaningless, doesn't matter. So whatever code you would write. If you have seen me doing some videos, especially when you get to writing HTML files and things like that, this editor is not the best, so it's not easy to work in it. And there's also issues of managing your code and things like that, which we may talk about at some point, but you might want to take this and actually have all these files locally on your computer so you can actually make changes to them instead of being in this web browser environment. Now, this is mostly useful if you're on a web project, if you're doing like web app, or you're doing some sort of user form where you have to do a lot of HTML related things, or if you simply just have a large project. If you just use this for small snippets of code, it's not going to add a lot of value, honestly, to what you're doing. You need to have a couple of things installed. So one is going to be some sort of text editor. Now, for this as a demonstration, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. And if you're not already familiar with this sort of environments, I suggest you grab the same thing. So that would be code.visualstudio.com. You can go to this link, you can download it for Windows, Mac, or Linux. So you basically just click download and then run the installation, next. Very easy installation like any other software. So in addition to this, you also need Nodejs installed. So this is where you can get it from nodejs.org. And for me, it goes to /en, but it doesn't matter. If you just go to nodejs.org, it will take you to the right place. Then you want to go ahead and download Node.js. I'm going with the recommended version. You can also go with the current version. It shouldn't matter. This is available for Mac, Windows, or Linux. You download, run the installation, next, and you're done. Now, once you have this installed, you want to go ahead and open Visual Studio Code, this first one. You do want to make sure you install both of these first. Once you open Visual Studio Code, this is something that it should look like. It's not going to be exactly the same screen, but it's going to be pretty similar. So at this point, you want to make sure you have some folder on your computer designated for this. So for me, I have, see this folder over here, Learn. In this folder, I'm going to create another folder just for this project. Class tutorial. So if I open this should be a blank empty folder. So what I want to do right now, I want to make sure in my Visual Studio Code, this is my project folder. So to do that, if you have this open folder, you can click on that. If you don't, on top in here, which you probably don't see right now in the recording, there is the file menu. On Windows, it will be more obvious. On a Mac, it's all the way up there. So if you go under File, on a Mac, you're going to do Open. I think on Windows, they call this Open Folder. That's the one you want to choose, but it's the same thing. So if you do have Open Folder, choose that one. If you don't, just go Open. So I'm going to go ahead and click Open. And what I need to do, I need to just find that folder. Another option here, if you don't want to do it this way, what you could do, you can simply just open that folder. And if I go back, this was that folder, Clasp tutorial. I can simply just drag it over here and it will open that folder. Now I don't need this welcome screen. I'm going to close that. So this is what you should see. You should see that folder name on that left panel, and you should have something like this on the right after you close that welcome screen. Now the other thing you want to do, you want to turn on your integrated terminal here. So this is where you can again go to that top menu on top. So you have that file, edit, etc. One of which is called view. So under view, you're going to find terminal. So if you click on that, it's going to open this in the bottom. And basically this gives you an integrated terminal. So what that is on a Mac, it's actually called terminal, if you're familiar with Mac's terminal. Or on Windows, it's called command line. And you can see how right now it shows that I'm in that Clasp tutorial folder. So at this point, the first thing you want to make sure you have Node installed correctly. So the way you can test this is by simply just typing Node-V and hit enter. And if you do have it installed, this should give you the version of Node you have installed. If you get something like this command does not exist or unknown command, something like that, then something went wrong with your Node installation. So you want to go back and try to reinstall it maybe again, and maybe just comment if you're getting any errors. I'll try to help you out. Once it is installed, this is also going to install something that's called npm, which is a package manager. It basically allows you to install other things using this command line. Now what I need to install that Clasp. If you go to their GitHub, this is the way it should look like. And if you scroll down, that's Clasp. And at some point, there's going to be a command to do the installation. See, install, and then it gives you the line to actually install this. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy this line, go to that Visual Studio Code, paste it in this integrated terminal, and hit enter. So as you can see, I'm getting some errors here. But one thing you can do, you can run this as an administrator, that same command. So if you're on a Mac system, you should be able to do this by adding sudo or Linux. That should work. And do this npm install and do the same command by adding sudo. And that will ask you for your admin password. Now on Windows, you have to run your command prompt as administrator. And that means you're not going to be doing it here in this environment. Let me see if I can find where you're going to do that. So if you go to your start menu, like to give you a short example here, this would be like Windows 10 start menu. So if I go here and scroll down, or you could search under search, you should be able to find Windows System, or you can just search for command prompt. There it is, Windows System command prompt. When you see this thing, instead of left clicking on this, just right click. And now I can go under more and run as administrator. So that way you can run that as an admin, and in that command prompt, instead of this integrated terminal, just type the same command again and try to get it installed. Now, as you can see, after running this as an administrator, I was able to get this whole thing installed with no errors. It still gives us this warning. That should be fine. So now you should have Clasp installed on your machine. So you can get back to this terminal if you had to leave it because of administrator privileges for Windows. You can come back to it and check if everything was installed well by doing Clasp-V. And that should give you the version of Clasp you have installed. And as you can see, it gave me this 2.3.0 right now. So I have now Clasp installed, so I can finally start doing what we're trying to do. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to manage this project in here. Now to do that, you need to make sure you have Google Apps Script API turned on. The way you can do that is by going to this link. So if you open that, you'll see that in your settings, your Google Apps Script API is turned off. If it's on, you don't want to turn it off. So I'm going to turn this on. So what I want to do right now, I just want to go to that project. This is that project I had, and you can get back to this if you opened it from your spreadsheet by going Tools, Script Editor, or however you get to your script, right? Now for this project, you need that project's ID. So to find it, you can either get it here on top in this crazy long link. What I like to do, I like to have the ID of the project in a different way. So I go under File, Project Properties, and then here, see, we have Script ID, which is basically your project ID. So you want to make sure you have that handy because you're going to need it. Now, once you have the API turned on and you have all of this installed, you should be able to log in with Google. So what you do, you go back to this and you do clasp space and login. And when you hit enter, it's going to prompt you with this window in your browser, which is where it's going to ask you for your account. So whatever Google account you use to manage that script, that's the one you should be using. So I'm going to open the account. It's going to ask for a bunch of privileges you're giving this. I'm going to hit allow. So see, it says logged in. You may close this page. So close it. Now we're logged in with Clasp. Now at this point, I want to get this project information to my computer. So you could do this directly in the main folder here, but generally speaking, it's never a good idea. You want to have a separate folder for all the files you'll be using in this project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the second icon to create a folder, src for source. You can call it anything you want. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use this folder for all the project files. And this main folder is going to be for anything else I might need to use. So for example, you will usually initialize a node project. So you can do that by doing npm space init. And basically this will create a package file for you. It's a JSON file. So it's going to ask us what's the name of the package you want, what's the version of the software, what description. You can type all of these things. For me, I'm just going to hit enter for all of this and be done. And you can see how it creates this package.json. Now, the next thing I want to do, I need to finally get that project that I was trying to get. So to do that, I'm going to do clasp and then clone. And then you have to do the script ID that you're trying to clone. Now, if you remember, that was this script ID. So you want to place this in quotes. So you do quote, that script ID in quotes, another space, and then you have to say which directory this needs to go to. Because if you don't do that, it will automatically pick up this main directory, but we want to use this src. So to do this, you do 2 dashes and then root dir with D uppercase. And then after the space, provide the name of the folder. My folder is called src. That's what I'm going to call this. Hit enter. So see, it went there. It did some things. Now, if I go to that source folder, you see it has this code.js and it has this appscript.json. Now, if I go to that code.js, you'll see this is that same file that we had here in the script editor. But you can see there is no second file that you can see, which is this appscript.json. This is right now not visible if I go back to this. You can make it visible by going under view and do the show manifest file. And that's that file. So by default, it's just hidden in here. That's why you can't see it, but it's still there. So there are just 2 files here that are available, which are the same files that now we have in here in the source folder. So the first thing you want to do, you want to make sure you clone the project, which I just did. Now, before I talk about the next one, I want you to pay attention to something. If you look at this file names, this one is called appscript.json, and this one is called code.js. Now, if I go to AppScripts editor, this one is still called appscripts.json, but this one is called code.gs. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that. In this editor, these are called GS, and when you download it to your computer, this is going to be JS for JavaScript extension. So now if I go to that code JS, let's say I've decided to change this code. So I'm going to copy this line, and instead of saying hello, I'm going to say bye. So you go here, make some changes, and you hit save, which you can do by doing Control S, Command S, or you can also do File, Save. Anyways, so I'm going to save this. Now at this point, you probably think, okay, so we're done, right? We saved it. Now the problem is, just because you save it on your computer, that doesn't mean it's going to be saved in here in the actual project. So if I refresh this screen, see, it's still the same thing. There are no changes. So if you're trying to actually apply those changes, what you need to do, you need to go here, run a command, Clasp Push. So this push, you can think about it like really saving your changes, I guess. But what it's really doing, it's taking your local version and it's basically sending it and overwriting the other version that you have on the actual server with these. So if I do Clasp Push, just like that, and hit enter, it's going to do this. See, it says 2 files pushed. So now if I go back, so I'm going to do refresh. And now you can see how we got bye in here. So we got those changes now in our actual project by running them on our local computer. Now we could also add new files to this. So I can go to this src source folder and add another file to this and call this something like funcs.js. Really any JavaScript file. Now you want to make sure that's in this source folder, not in this main folder, right? So that's going to be all our project files. So here, let's just create a quick function. So now again, if I want this to be available on the actual project, I go here and I run the same Clasp Push command, which you could also, by the way, do by pressing the up arrow key on your keyboard. It's always going to grab the latest command you had. So I'm going to run this. It's going to, again, push these changes. And what should happen now, if I go back and reload this, you see how I have this new file, funcs.js. And maybe you go here and make some changes now on the server. And you save it here on the server in this Google's environment. So now if you go back to this, that's not going to be available. So even if you close this and reopen it, see, it's still the old stuff. So if you want to get those changes from the server, you need to pull that information. So pushing is where you take the local one and apply it to the server, and pulling is where you take the server's version and pull it back here. So what you do here, you basically just do Clasp Pull. And now if I run this, see, it shows the new line that was just done on the server. Now, as you start working on this project more, and let's say you do another change, you soon may realize that because you want to test this, for example, you need to run this, but this is not going to have that updates yet. So you need to constantly just push all these changes to the server. So you have to constantly go here and do Clasp Push to get it done. And this gets really annoying if you manually have to do this every time you make a change, right? So what you could do, you can do this. You can do Clasp Push, and then you can do this dash watch. And if I do this, what's going to happen? Actually, it's not watch apparently, just W. So let me go correct that. So like this. So if I hit enter, see right now it says it's pushing files and it's not getting out of this program. It's stuck in this program. And what it's doing right now, it's waiting for any changes that I do here. So what's going to happen every time you go to these files and make some change and you save it, every few seconds, it's going to go and find those changes you did when you save it and see how it automatically just pushed it. So now if I go and check without actually running this again, I should be able to see another change or what I've misspelled. So let me correct that and save it. So once I save it again, see, in just a little bit, it's running this again. So I should be able to go back here and refresh. And you'll see how I have that change now applied. Basically, every time any change I do to any one of these project files, it's automatically going to happen on the project on the server too. So again, Command S or Control S, see it's pushing those files. Now I go back and reload this, and I should be able to see that change. There it is. Now, one thing that's going to be annoying if you're new to this is that once you're in this, at some point you want to get out of this whole watch situation. So what you can do, you can simply just press Control C while you're clicked inside of this. And if you're on a Mac, you really want to press Control, not Command. It should be the same, I believe, on Windows. But if it's not, please somebody correct me in comments. And that will get me out of this. So now I'm back to my terminal. So that's how we can push and pull and do this type of changes. So the last thing I want to talk about here is that what you're going to notice. Now, if I go to that server right here and I type something like spreadsheet app and do dot, well, if I learn how to type, see, I get all of these properties and methods available for that. And then if we do something like get active spreadsheet and you do dot, you get all the methods on that, all of that. Now, if I go and try this on my local version right here and do spreadsheet app dot, you'll see I'm not getting any of that stuff. So if you want to be able to get that autocomplete, you actually have some more things you need to have installed. And for that, we're going to go back to that Clasp website. And here we're going to go under docs. And under docs, we're going to go to this TypeScript MD file. And simply just scroll down. So I'm not going to go over what TypeScript actually is in this video, but we're just trying to make our autocomplete work. So if you see there's a quick start, it says prerequisites. And it says you have to do this, which is this Clasp V, which basically just gives you what version you have. And it says you want to make sure you probably have like a later version, which you are going to have if you just installed this. And then it says run this. So I'm going to copy this line, go to my terminal, paste it, and run it. We ran all of that. And then the next one says create a file called this to enable TypeScript features. So I'm going to skip that one for a second now. I'm going to go back to this. Let's try to write this. See, without doing anything else, I'm just writing spreadsheet app. See how this thing opened up? And then I do dot, and then I have my get active spreadsheet, this one, and then I can do dot, and then we have our get range. Now, these are not always going to be accurate and match what you get in the editor, but if you're new to this, you're probably not going to feel any difference whatsoever. But keep in mind that these are manually being updated, and if Google makes some changes, this could be different here until they catch up and make changes on this side. But now we have autocomplete. And you could come in here and now add some HTML files if you have to. Adding HTML files is as simple as going to this folder, creating a new file, and just giving it .html extension. So here you can create your HTML files using all the features from Visual Studio Code, like Emmet, so you can do stuff like this to populate this. So let's just keep this simple. Let's create an H1 here. And then you could now take this file in your script side and create some HTML service using this my.html file, which is what it's called. I can create a function here. So basically, we'll take this HTML service, go get that file called my.html, and then we create HTML service out of this, and then we provide that to the sidebar so we can add this HTML to our sidebar. So if I go ahead and save this, now because I'm not watching this anymore, I have to manually push all these changes. So I'll do Clasp Push. Now if I go back here and refresh my, where is it? Editor, you'll see I have that add to sidebar function, and I can just run it. And it's gonna again ask for all the permissions as usual. And if I go to my spreadsheet, there's the sidebar, right? So see how we have that my HTML file here, and we have all the rest of the files. So this should give you, I guess, overall understanding of the workflow. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video to show you some tricks you can do to make your workflow better. But for this one, that should be it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.